First, I want to show you an insane concept. Here is the most busy highway in Norway. Here is the off-ramp. Here are the chargers. One of the most iconic highway stops in Norway, actually. Hello and welcome to Autospec Reviews. DC fast charging is so important for EV adoption. DC fast charging is the way you can get around. It is the freedom to travel, DC fast charging. And in this video, I'm going to drive over to some of my favorite DC fast charging sites. This video is sponsored by Kempower, so that's naturally what we are going to check out. But I'm also going to tell you the story of DC fast charging in Norway while we drive around. So let's start from the beginning and then visit some DC fast charging sites. Some are really cool and I think they are so well designed, and I think a lot of DC fast charging operators can learn from this video. So let's take a road trip. In Norway, Kempower has been here for quite a while. The first site that Kempower opened is a site that we will visit, which is super exciting. Then I will show you some of the newest Kempower sites and how sites should really be designed, because some of the later Kempower sites are so incredibly good, and we will visit those as well, like right off the highway, only pull through, just fantastic to see. Like, I go on so many EV road trips, and that's what's important for me. It's amenities, that it's right off the highway, and of course that it's easy to pay and everything with the car terminals that were legally mandated in Norway a few years ago, actually. In Norway, Kempower has been here for quite a while. The first site that Kempower opened is a site that we will visit, which is super exciting. Then I will show you some of the newest Kempower sites and how sites should really be designed, because some of the later Kempower sites are so incredibly good, and we will visit those as well, like right off the highway, only pull through, just fantastic to see. Like, I go on so many EV road trips, and that's what's important for me. It's amenities, that it's right off the highway, and of course that it's easy to pay and everything with the car terminals that were legally mandated in Norway a few years ago, actually. DC fast charging in Norway started out with these FSEC 50 kilowatt units. That's when it really started. That's of course after the AC only chargers, which were kind of common before that. And these FSEC 50 kilowatt units kind of served the Nissan Leafs and the early EVs very well, but they kind of weren't enough. So Enova, it's an institution in Norway that gives out grants for building out DC fast charging infrastructure early on. So the first DC fast chargers in Norway, the first few years where we had real longer range EVs on the road, those were state subsidized by Enova. So they got grants to put in DC fast chargers on the routes that needed them. But there weren't really given that many grants, and if we look at the DC fast chargers on the road today, most of them are put in by private companies without incentives. But early on we did have a bunch of different incentives to put in DC fast chargers for personal cars. There are still some incentives for putting in DC fast chargers for trucks, but the early incentives for personal cars have all ended. Anyway, this first site with Kempower in 2020 was kinda revolutionary. It showed that not only Tesla could put in chargers that had a shared power solution between the different dispensers, or as Kempower calls them, satellites. So let's take a look at the first Kempower site in Norway and why it's special. It all started here in the summer of 2020 when Kempower decided to enter Norway. Makes sense. It is kind of like the EV capital, so it absolutely makes sense. And this location is very special because right down there is a gas station that sells buns, and it's one of the most iconic highway stops in Norway, actually. And here we have the Kempower cabinet. And here are the units, just 6 units, 150 kilowatt only. This is one of the first sites that we had in Norway from Kempower. I think it's the first. It has to be the absolute first, actually. So this is a very, very special site. And it's still up and running. Of course, we had some screens here that are not working. This is not part of the Kempower system. I think it's to showcase how the power is sent through or something. Anyway, these Kempower units are all up and running, and they are connected to this super cool cabinet over here of like old generation of Kempower cabinets or power units, like they call them, and it has this kind of cool design. Let's see if they have different specifications for this one compared to the newer ones. Can't seem to find a label. And we have like this tiniest transformer. Look at this super small transformer over here. And this side doesn't need a lot of power. I assume this is like a 400 kilowatt cabinet or something. Might be something similar to that. If you have watched Björn Nyland's videos, he has been here multiple times. He was here, I think, at the opening, and there is a super nice Taycan Cross Turismo. And I'm now charging here. And you have a great view. And again, I mentioned that you have the most iconic highway stop in Norway right down here. It is where they try to sell 2.1 million buns a year, and we are a country with 5-6 million people, so that's pretty impressive, I would say. For like buns, they have a bunch of merch. Look at this, like a Buc-ee's in the US, just way smaller. Oh, the Taycan is coming here. That's so cool. Taycan with the roof box. Doesn't get better than that. From Sweden. That's rare. Now, that was an early site. 2020 is pretty early for electric cars, but not really in Norway. We had a bunch of EVs available, and the utilization on that station have always been high from like my experience going there, charging there. And this was the first generation of Kempower hardware that they sold to different CPOs. And this shared power solution was, again, it was revolutionary, because everything that we had up until then was mostly these all-in-one units, a bunch of like tritium units, and units that kind of were unreliable, because DC fast chargers started out pretty unreliable because they weren't made for charging cars over and over. They were made for other stuff. We just really recently got proper dedicated chargers that are tested in super cold conditions, chargers that are meant to charge cars over and over, high power, heat management and everything. There are so many things that goes into a DC fast charger. There are so many things that are needed for them to be reliable. By nature, a thing like that is not reliable, so they need to create it in a reliable way. And in my experience, truly from my heart, it has nothing to do with this video being sponsored by Kempower. Kempower units have been super reliable to me in all kinds of weather conditions. I have never experienced any issues with the Kempower units due to weather or anything like that. So they have been incredibly reliable. And this site has been here for 5.5 years now, and it's still going strong. So that's very nice to see. Now, it is time to move over to today, to one of the newest Kempower sites in Norway. This is a ST1 station, and it's right off the highway. And by right off the highway, I mean right off the highway. Take a look. First, I want to show you an insane concept. Here is the most busy highway in Norway. Here is the off-ramp, and here are the chargers. So let's run through the charging station here, take a look at all the Kempower satellites and the power units, and see what this station can offer. So let's walk in the direction of where you would drive. So we come off the off-ramp and high speed in here, and you park right here, you plug in the car, you run in there, and you run out to the car again, and it will be ready before you are. Because here we have 400 kilowatt Kempower satellites. And these are pretty amazing. These are the newest Kempower satellites that we have, aside from the mega satellites and stuff alike, which I will talk a little bit about. But here you can get 200 kilowatts on a 400 volt car, or 800 volts on 400 kilowatts on an 800 volt car. I think it's amazing that they show this, because oftentimes the kilowatts or the conversion power that's available is not telling the
true story. If you have a 400 volt car, you can only get 200 kilowatts here because of the 500 amp limitation. And I think this is fantastic because I think most people know if they have a 400 volt or 800 volt car. And if they don't, it doesn't matter. The information is not cluttered here. So I really, really like that. Of course, we have car terminals on all of them. And all of them are also pull-through, which is absolutely amazing. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, we have 8 outside the canopy. We have 2 power units and we have 4 under the canopy. So you have the opportunity to park under the canopy, which is something I probably should have done. Of course, we have full 800 volt support and everything like I showed you, which is fantastic. This is a 600 kilowatt cabinet. This is a 600 kilowatt cabinet. Those are connected to these 6, I assume, and this one is connected to these 6. These ones can also be connected together. In this case, I'm actually not sure exactly how they are connected, but let's take a look at the stations under the canopy. These satellites have such a slim footprint that you can place 2 of them there, no issues whatsoever. And the power stacks, where the power comes from, is still placed out here. You see these light posts and everything. It actually looks pretty great, this site. And we have, of course, a trash bin. We have another trash bin, and you have all the amenities that you would expect from a gas station, because we still have gas pumps. So this looks like a pretty nice site, right? I really, really like this site layout. I like that it's pull-through. And most important for me is that there are no red lights, not even a roundabout. It's right off the highway over there. And when you want to go back onto the highway, you can just drive out there. Something that's just absolutely insane as well is that over on the other side, we have another SD1. And I'm not sure if you can see them, but right over there, there are more Kempower units. Yes, there is another site almost just like this one on the other side, but they have less pull-throughs and it's more of a traditional back-in site. But they did replace some gas pumps actually over there, so that's interesting. The most important thing for me is that the stations are close to the highway, because you save so much time on road trips when the stations are close to the highway. And also, I think this site is very cool because there are enough plugs. There are 12 plugs. It's similar to like a Tesla supercharger station. There is less likely to be a queue because there are more places to plug in. Yes, you might not get the full speed if everything is full here, but being able to offer up to 400 kilowatts for 800 volt cars is fantastic. These sites are not full. Right now we are like in the most off-peak period of the day. I'm sure in a more peak travel season there are so many more cars here, but having the ability to eliminate queues just by having enough stations to plug into, I think it's more important that you get something than if you didn't get anything at all and you just stand there waiting for a charger. So I think this solution works pretty well. Okay, so you are in an AutoSpec road trip race and you want to get onto the highway again. So you come off the chargers, you go here, and you have to yield. No coming traffic, and you are onto the highway. Absolutely perfect. That SD1 station was just amazing. That's one of the best laid out stations that I've been to. Just pull-throughs right off the highway, right onto the highway. You know how much I care about things being right off and on the highway, because you lose so much time going through traffic lights and everything. So I really, really enjoy that. All pull-throughs, all the newest Kempower hardware. We have 800 volt compatibility. We have the distributed power, we have replaced gas pumps, which I think is just amazing. If you're interested in seeing more Kempower stuff, so more Kempower stations, I already made a video here on AutoSpec Reviews where I visited one of the most important gas stations in Norway. That video did very well. I recommend checking that out. I just walk through a Circle K, which has decided to buy Kempower hardware now, which is a pretty new thing for Circle K actually. And that site is just
fantastic as well, just right off the highway, and a bunch of DC fast chargers. So I really enjoyed that. And now we have 95% of new car sales in Norway are electric cars. We still need to build out DC fast charging networks, even though we have so many DC fast chargers in Norway because we have had so many years to build them out. Some of them are getting very old, especially the old 50 kilowatt units. What's happening to them? We have to upgrade them. We have to get new DC fast chargers because, of course, we had a bunch of early hardware in Norway because we were early with electric cars. Other countries can leapfrog this by just installing the best in the beginning, because now we have so much reliable DC fast charging hardware around. So I also want to mention that the approach that Kempower uses here is also an approach we see with other hardware manufacturers now. People are moving to distributed systems, which means that they can share power around the site to optimize the site for utilization. And this is extremely important if we want to try to get CPOs profitable. There are enormous investments made, and it's hard to recuperate the costs for many CPOs. So yeah, I'm excited to see the way forward for both Kempower and everything with DC fast charging. But we still need more DC fast charging in Norway, even though we have had like 10 years to build out a DC fast charging network in Norway. We still need more. There are still charging queues, and especially when we have such a high adoption. So I'm curious to see the way forward. I hope you like this video where I just went on a tour of these two sites and showed kind of like the beginning of Kempower and the future of Kempower and what sites are being put in Norway now. It is one of the most popular hardware providers for DC fast charging in Norway, and I can't wait to see what Kempower does moving forward. I'm so excited for them.
I was gonna do my shopping over at that store, and I just stopped here and I can see that we have Kempower chargers there. So why not just quickly check out this MER site. So MER is owned by the state-owned grid company in Norway. Unfortunately, they don't have the best prices, but they have fantastic like Kempower hardware, which is fantastic to see here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we have 12 chargers and we have 2 cabinets. So 1 cabinet over here and 1 cabinet over there, distributing the power to all these. There is an MG and a Polestar 3. Let's take a look at the cars here, because car spotting is always fun. This is a beautiful blue Taycan, of course, and here is the beautiful Polestar 3. So great site, and it's nice to see that we have it so close to the store here, so you can run in, buy groceries, and you are full when you are back.